When people ask me what my favorite snowboarding game is, they're often surprised how quickly I say SSX3. It is, after all, not just a great snowboarding title, but it's also one of my favorite games of all time. Look, maybe it's just me, but I love exploring the large open-world mountains looking for hidden items and out-of-the-way objects to trick off of. And there have been a lot of snowboarding games released over the last 19 years, some of which are fantastic. But few have managed to duplicate what I loved about SSX3. That is, until now. Let me introduce you to Grand Mountain Adventure Wonderlands, a new extreme sports game built around racing, tricking, and, most importantly, exploring 12 unique peaks from all over the world. It may not be as over-the-top and flashy as the competition, but I'm here to tell you that this snowboarding game succeeds where so many others have failed. You might need to get real close to the screen for this review, because you control a teeny tiny snowboarder shredding their way down one of the most intense mountain ranges in the entire world. With a bird's eye view of the action and a character always facing the camera, I'll admit that Grand Mountain Adventure takes a little getting used to. This isn't the stylish, neon-drenched world of SSX, and longtime snowboarding fans may be confused by the overhead perspective. But take a moment and let your eyes adjust. Once you get used to the small characters and unusual camera angle, you'll find a surprisingly deep sports game with enough content to keep you going for months. While the look may be unusual, the general progression is not. The goal of the game is to go around completing a series of familiar events in hopes of winning ski passes, which you'll use to open up new events and harder mountains. This is one of those games that seems small and limited at first, but once you start collecting those ski passes and the different peaks begin to open up, you'll quickly realize that Grand Mountain Adventure can be overwhelming at times. Now, if you've played a snowboarding game before, then you're going to recognize a lot of the event types. You have the normal race, where you have to compete against the clock in order to speed through a bunch of different gates and get to the finish line without crashing. You'll also find trick events, where the goal is to locate jumps, down trees, bridges, and other things that you can stunt over and on. Of course, there are also variations on the race and trick events, such as trying to jump a set distance before time runs out and racing during an avalanche. What's more, there are a bunch of goofier event types, including one where you go around smacking beginning skiers, and another where you try to avoid being attacked by bears. Where other snowboarding games would turn each race and trick session into a big deal, the events in Grand Mountain Adventure are relatively small and short. It's common to finish a race in well under a minute, and some of the trick courses are only 20 or 30 seconds long, if that. But just because the events are short does not mean that you're going to beat them on the first attempt. Trust me, this is the kind of game where every success story comes with a dozen failed attempts. Sometimes you'll hit a jump wrong, while other times you'll come up just short of the score that you're shooting for. Yeah, you're gonna be thankful that the start of the event is only one button press away. Now, while the events are short and sweet, I would argue that the real fun is found in exploring Grand Mountain Adventure's 12 massive open-world peaks. It's here where you'll stumble upon hidden events, secret ski passes, and a bunch of other bonus material. This is also the best way to get to know each mountain's unique personality. You never really know what you're going to find when you go off the beaten path, and the game is always good about rewarding you for the effort. Best of all, once you've found a new location, you'll be able to fast travel to it in all of the different events. Whether it's going through the menus or on a snowboard, getting around in this game is easy and painless. But let's not simply gloss over the different locations and their personalities. I like how some of the destinations are bright, colorful, and overly welcoming, while others are cold, lifeless, and not for the faint of heart. Some mountains are located right next to a lively village, while other peaks are in the middle of nowhere. I love the subtle color changes and wide variety of landscape. all of which becomes bigger and more treacherous the deeper you go. And with 12 challenging mountains to explore and conquer, I can assure you that you won't be able to beat this game in just 1 or 2 sittings. With so many events and secrets to find, you're gonna be at Grand Mountain Adventure for a long time to come. Thankfully, the gameplay is deep enough to warrant that kind of investment. Pulling off tricks and combos is easy and fun once you get used to using the dual analog sticks. Sure, there aren't nearly as many moves as in SSX and other snowboarding games, but you're not gonna miss them. There's enough variety to the moves to keep the trick events from becoming too repetitive. Plus, there are buttons you can press and hold if you want to cut through the snow in a particular way or hit a tight corner just right. In other words, there's a lot more going on here than initially meets the eye, which is something I can say about every part of Grand Mountain Adventure. The one place where it does stumble is when it comes to the events. I don't mind the bite-sized nature of them, but I do wish that some of them were a bit more elaborate. Would have been fun to actually race against other skiers and snowboarders, but all we get is the clock and a ghost of our best run. I also found some of the events to be, well, terrible, especially the races with the invisible gates. These are dark events where you have to find the correct path using context clues. Ugh, it's hard enough winning when you can actually see the track, so taking away the gates felt needlessly cruel. Instead of making the game more exciting, all it does is make it a lot more frustrating. My other gripe is that the levels and events don't open up fast enough. I found myself needing to go back and replay a lot of the early stages and purposely hunt for more ski passes. The game should have unlocked more events and mountains right from the start, making the opening hours less of a slog. The good news is that once things open up, you'll have almost too much to choose from. Then again, that's not a bad problem to have. For some, the steep $35 asking price may be a sticking point, but I would argue that Grand Mountain Adventure has more than enough content to warrant the cost. I mean, there are well over 100 race and trick events, plus a lot of varied missions, tons of extras to find, and I'm sure you've heard me say it already, a dozen mountains ready and waiting to be explored. Even after putting so many hours into it, I still have a lot of events to complete and ski passes to collect. Honestly, I can see myself sticking with the game long after the review's been posted, which is rare for me these days. It looks a little funky and could have used a bit more style, but Grand Mountain Adventure Wonderlands is the most fun I've had in a snowboarding game since SSX 3. Don't be fooled by the overhead camera perspective and tiny characters, because Grand Mountain Adventure Wonderlands is a deep and involving extreme sports game that lets you hit the slopes as either a snowboarder or a skier. Conquer more than 100 race and trick events spread across 12 open world levels that are full of surprises. Add multiplayer modes to the mix and you have a surprisingly robust package that is more than ready to go toe-to-toe with the flashier snowboarding games. Yeah, this is an easy game to recommend, even at full price. Hey, thanks for watching our review. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new reviews and features almost every day. Now, here's the question I have for you. What is your favorite skiing and snowboarding game? Is it SSX 3 like me, or do you go in a completely different direction? Let me see your picks in the comments below. In other news, we'll be back next week with a massive video where Electronic Gaming Monthly counts down all 43 Sonic the Hedgehog games. That's including the spin-offs. Yeah, it's gonna be epic. While you wait for that, please do me a favor and click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then,